So, hello, my name is Pavla Oubret. I'm a narrative designer, and in this talk I'm going to be talking about a game I made for the Pride Game Jam this summer, called Bouncexual Bunny, the musical. In this talk I'm going to be focusing mostly on the writing aspect rather than the coding or the engine. And it's a lot about how to write a game from the narrative point of view when you don't actually know the engine or the technical side of things. So first a little bit about me. So I have studied at Helsinki University, English language and literature. I have bachelor's and master's, and during my master's I have done research specifically on narratology in video games and interactive narratives. And because it wasn't enough, I have also now done training on full stack development that I have just finished. And yes, now I'm going to play you a little bit from the game. It's about a minute-long video. Just two warnings, as the name of the game already says, it's a bit of a not safe for work. And also, the video, we recorded it on the last day of the Pride Game Jam in a closet. So the quality kind of shows it, but I will then tell you more about what you have actually seen, if it's not that visible. So let's hope this works. There we go. So I know this was a bit chaotic. I'm gonna get to that also. So, as I said, it was a game made for Helsinki Pride Jam, so we have made it in about 2.5 days, but we did manage to make the full gameplay. So there was quite a large team, so I was the narrative designer, and then Jone Harjak, Kiri Kalkaja, and Hrede Laseiki, they were doing our graphics. That is Hrede, amazing bunny animation there jumping. And then Samuel Jaskelainen did basically all of the programming and level design, and then eventually Valtteri Tavas did the music for us. So, why a Bouncexual Bunny? So, the topic of the game was sphere, or of the jam was sphere, and one day I will come up with a normal idea for a video game, but that day hasn't happened yet, and we were thinking about, well, bunnies are kind of round and they bounce and balls bounce, so we can make a bunny that bounces and tries to convince everyone to join the bouncy spherical side. So the bunny goes around, talks to animals, tries to seduce them through a power of song, where you have to make the correct decisions in the dialogue. And if you are successful, you will manage to conquer the world and assimilate everyone to the bouncy side. Now, why a musical? So, we have formed a team without actually knowing what we want to do, as usual. And Kiri came that they just bought a Game Boy, and if we could make a game for a Game Boy. So, Samuel luckily knew how to make a game for a Game Boy using a Game Boy Studio, which is an open source program. I'm pretty sure it's open source, but it's really available in itch.io. Specifically for that, and it also includes music editor, so you can write the music for the game already in the engine. And, well, it's not really a musical, it's more of a sing-along, because you cannot, of course, have the vocals on that, and none of us knew how to sing anyway. But yeah, so we had people doing graphics, we had people writing and programming. One person we did not have was actually somebody who would know how to write the music when we started doing it. We actually wanted to ask Borb, our previous speaker, if he would help us, but he was at Tuska, so. So we just started writing it without having any music whatsoever. So there I was having to figure out how, first of all, how to write poetry, because I haven't actually done that before, and how to write for Game Boy using some kind of an engine I have never used, and how to make all of it fit. So there were several things I needed to consider. So one of them was the materiality itself of the Game Boy, because as you have seen, it has a very small screen. So the text had to be very short to actually fit. And then I had to be making a lot of decisions on how to actually split the text so that it's still like there's a sizable amount of text, so that it's not like one word by one word, but still so it kind of comes. So what I have decided was that always like one line of a rhythm. And then similar problem was with the dialogue, how we had to make it. That also, again, it had to take only a small part of the screen because there's limitations in the Game Boy Studio, how much you can actually fit into the dialogue window. Plus, we also had to create our own font for the cinematic scenes, because every time you manage to sort of seduce the animal, then comes the song that you are meant to be singing along to the music. So again, as I have said, that was having to consider how to write. First of all, learn how to write poetry, as I was writing it. Learn how to write it without any music so that it's kind of universal rhythm, so no matter what kind of music we would land on, it would somehow always fit. And also something that is kind of like easily to be sang, which is kind of where I failed, because I went a bit too deep into the rabbit hole of research and learned some kind of funny things. For example, that a group of bunnies is called a fluffle, or that a group of seals is called a harem. So there's way more puns than probably appropriate, and it possibly might be impeding on how easily you can read it or how fast you can read it, but, well, you can play it again. It's a very short game. And then finally, we did get the music on the last day of the jam. Luckily, my partner learned how to do it, but he spent like full day learning how to work with the program, so he only recorded it like the day before we were actually supposed to submit the game, and then he sent us the track, so we have spent like the last 2 hours of the jam just going through the tracks and figuring out which kind of track fits with which kind of text, and all of the tracks were very short loops. I think it was 10 to 25-second loops, so that it loops nicely. But then there again was the problem that we didn't have the time to edit the music anymore, so what did we learn from that? One decision I had to make was that since we want people to sing along, we don't want people to manually go in to the next screen so that it still fits into the rhythm of the music. But then only after, when people were playing it at the end of the jam, when it was already finished, we have like learned that the music was probably a bit too fast and that the text was going a bit too fast. So that's something that we could have done a little differently, so that the music is either slower or the text is split even more, so that people actually have the time to go and actually sing along with the melody. So, well, the usual not enough time during the jam. But again, the game is very playable, and honestly, this is pretty much all that I have had to say, so I hope you have a lot of questions. And as a final thing, this is Kiri's amazing cover art for our game. So you can play the game on itch.io, and also this week, until Sunday, the game is exhibited in Kouvola as part of the Pelain Vapaa Kaupunki, so the actual Game Boy we have used for the game is there, and you can go and play it on that Game Boy. And that is all.
Okay. Thank you, Pavla. That's absolutely fantastic. So I think that one of the best parts of it is that it's actually on Game Boy, and now you can go and play it, but you have to take a train ride.
You can play it in the browser, but I suggest playing it on mobile because that emulates the browser really well with the controls, and the Game Boy really well with the controls.
Yeah, good tip. Does the audience have any questions for Pavla? I can start with one, and then raise your hand, and the mic will come to your line if you have some questions. So yeah, I mean, you don't know, even to this day, how Game Boy Studio works, right?
Nope.
But do you have now interest that you've been part of this project to kind of go and check it out?
Yes, I have downloaded it. Haven't had the time to play with it yet, but yes.
Yeah, so is that like a next plan that maybe go and do your own game logic with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the only part of the process of the actual program in there was that I had to make sure that the font actually looks nicely, so that whatever I write actually shows. There was a bit of a problem with the commas a bit that they weren't showing, so we had to also adjust that. But and then also knowing how big it is so that I could be writing it. But like I was writing it with a very high tech. You know, I was using text edit on my laptop and then sending the text through Discord.
So, are you planning on expanding on this game, or is this done like
I
many
would like
game
to
jams?
if people are interested, but we haven't talked about it yet.
Yeah, it's quite typical that sometimes some people in the team want to continue, others don't necessarily have time for it. So that's the kind of pity of some of the wonderful game jam projects. Any game jams in the future that you're planning to participate?
Well, definitely at least the Finnish Game Jam, and whatever I will hear about, yes. If you have anything that's coming up, well, I guess today.
Yeah. Today there is one very minor game jam. Any questions from the audience? There is one. Okay, let's get the mic there.
Hi, thanks for the talk. I think my question is a bit more about the theme of the game and about like pride and LGBTQ. What advice would you have if someone wants to write about sexualities and narratives of the game, and how to keep it sensible, how to be well informed about that, and how to make sure you're not doing any missteps which end up in like narrative cliches or some things which are kind
Well,
of like,
that is actually one thing that we have struggled with, because I have no idea why I wanted to have the assimilation there. I was probably just watching too much Star Trek at the time. But then we were thinking that, yeah, we cannot just go and assimilate animals through sex. We cannot do that. So then we have landed that the mechanics would be that we seduce them instead, and the animals can, of course, like not be seduced if they don't want to. But again, I like our game that was more like of a silly. There were more serious games that were handling this topic in a more serious way. So I do suggest you check the HIO page for the Pride Jam and look at those games, because again, ours is, you know, a Bouncexual Bunny from Bouncexual Bouncylvania. So
thanks.
Good. Have you played yourself like musical games before?
no, I didn't even know they existed until this point.
So in game jams you can do many firsts and maybe
Yes.
explore further from there. Yeah, I love it how there is a connection with the previous speaker as well in the game jam. All right, I think that's it. That's also my questions, and we'll take the next presenter to the stage. So thank you, Pavla, for your presentation.